Hey guys, welcome to this week's sermon preview. I'm Morgan Rich, and I'm with Nick. So we just got done with this 7-week series about Be One, Make One, talking about discipleship.
Yes.
Now we're at a standalone week, and we are talking about God's holiness, Psalm 99, and that's before we go into our next series about discipleship again.
Yeah, right. So we're looking at Psalm 99, and it felt like this was just a good gap for us. So as you and I were talking about it, we felt like God's holiness was something that would be important for us to take this week and focus on, right? As we come out of this 7-week series focused on Be One, Make One, what it means to be a disciple, to make a disciple. And then next week, we're going to jump into, it's our Lent series actually, but we're going to be looking at some of the individual disciples, Peter, James, John, Andrew, and looking at their lives and what it looked like for them to be a disciple. So in the midst of that, as we're coming out of this series on discipleship where it's very personal, and then going into this series on discipleship of looking at them and how we can follow Jesus as they did, reorienting ourselves and remembering who it is that we're following, remembering the holiness of our God, and making sure our perspective is set correctly as we do that. So Psalm 99 seemed like it really accomplished that for us, right? So it's a wonderful, wonderful psalm. 9 verses, so it's pretty short. And as most psalms are, it's kind of in a style of a hymn almost. There's 3 stanzas, so it's just a really cool structure within the flow of the psalm. And so, Morgan, as we read this psalm, there are, like I said, 3 stanzas. What is it that repeats within the psalm? What do we see that repeats over and over again here?
So depending on the translation you have, it's going to say He is holy or God is holy, and it says it 3 times.
3 times, right. So at the end of each of those sections, we see He is holy, and which is just such a fascinating thing to think about, because what that tells us, being that the psalmist ends each of those stanzas with He is holy, that everything else that he lists above that is describing His holiness, right? And so further, that tells us that His holiness, God's holiness, isn't just like a single attribute, but it's actually something like a qualifying thing that describes all of His other attributes, right? So His holiness is something that describes His entire essence, His entire being of who God is, right? So it's much deeper than just saying God is holy, but saying God's holiness permeates into absolutely every other aspect of who God is, right? So it's an incredibly deep subject and idea. And so as we look at this idea of holiness, we'll get into more of this during the sermon, but holiness at its very basic level is this idea of being set apart, being different, being unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's who God is. He is different, He is separate, He is unique from us, from creation, from everything, right? And not just like in physicality, but also in morality and ethic, like everything about who God is. He is far above and beyond who we are, right? And so it's incredible to think about the holiness of God, and it's a really kind of a privilege and an honor to be able to follow a God who is who He is, right? So yeah, really excited for this. I think it's going to be a great passage for us as we kind of bridge the gap between 2 series and maybe refocus or recenter our mind on God as we think about what it means for us to follow Him. So this week, as you prepare for this sermon, or for this passage, something a little bit different. Okay, so I mentioned before, a lot of psalms were designed to be musical, right? There's kind of poetic or whatever. So my challenge to you is, if you have access to the internet, to go and search for Psalm 99 music, or Psalm 99 put to music. So there's people that have taken Psalm 99 and they have added musical instruments to it, and they sing it in a musical way, right? And some of those songs, they just sing the words directly as they are in the psalm. Others of them take the refrain, the He is holy part, and they get creative in how they incorporate that. So something a little bit different to look at, but you hear the words differently when they're sung, right? Absolutely. As opposed to when they're just read. So I encourage you to do that. If you have access to the internet, to search for a song of Psalm 99. But if not, feel free to read it in a couple of translations. It's still very, very beneficial to do that. And then think about this idea of how have you seen God's holiness? How have you experienced it or recognized it? Because we know that God's holiness is a part of who he is. And so all of us as followers of Jesus will have experienced his holiness in some way. So recognizing what that looks like for you in your life, I think would be helpful as we prepare for this passage.
Absolutely.
So, all right, sounds good. See you then.